Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show. It's episode 11 of When Ops Meets Dev. When Dev Meets Ops. Which way around are we doing it? I can never remember.
It's Ops Meets Dev now.
Ops Meets Dev. I know, I got it wrong in the title, I just noticed. Guys, it's been a couple of weeks. How are you both doing? You all okay?
Yeah, very good. A little bit of my voice is a little raw, but good.
Yeah. How's
Pretty good.
Swami?
Good. Happy to get into the next phase. We did a logical closure of products microservice. Now we are getting into the client saga. So I see there's a lot of weight on Robbie's shoulder. So
Yeah, in the client, I'm going to be presenting some stuff on Angular.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
I love to learn that.
We've done pretty well up to now. I mean, episode 10, we had a bit of a recap as to where we got to with the whole microservices piece, and everything that we've done up to that point. And yeah, I think we took a bit of a pause there, and now we are making that shift in this episode, and we're looking at client-side development essentially. So, I mean, should we jump straight on in? What are we going to cover off for this episode, guys?
Yeah, I'll take quick 2 minutes to run through the plan which three of us have done. And then we'll quickly introduce the episode, what we're going to do. Actually, this was the proposed architecture which we started 6 months ago. And we are going to get the actual implementation. Like we can see the Kubernetes cluster right now, which has got a Kubernetes and couple of containers or pods, and which is slowly starting to increase. So the plan is we did 10 sessions to create one microservice, and then we did a pause and we started the client saga. Now, how does the client integrates with this? While doing, we'll start with the design system and the configuration manager. Then you'll see 5 to 6 containers inside the Kubernetes. So it's all coming up. It's in the eShop main. And coming back to this session, you can go back to products and you will get all the previous documentation and its video. It's there. So, and also the wish list. We are going to definitely revisit to products microservice as and when we grow old on the client. So we'll revisit that. So today's episode, we are going to do few things. introduction release done. So we'll speak about what is this eShop main, and then Robbie will speak about the shell script, because as of today, if you see that we have quite a few repositories are there. You guys don't need to worry about that, how the number of repositories are getting added. How do you track it? There is one simple script which will take care of everything. So we'll come and discuss about that. And this one, the shell script Robbie will discuss, and the PowerShell script which I will discuss. But the input for both is the YAML. That was very good idea, Robbie. Robbie did that YAML because there was a hard-coded thing here, and thanks to Robbie, he moved that to YAML. We'll discuss about that. Then we'll showcase what is the prominence or importance of eShop main, which deploys the entire solution, and the next 40 minutes is client saga. So let me come back to this one real quick. I'll speak about this for 4 to 5 minutes, and Robbie and John, please pitch in whenever you want. So here we have multiple repositories. You can see this. This is the folder. So how do you create this on your own? So what you can do is you can go back to you can go and have a folder which we are calling it as a parent folder. Like if you see this, we have this GitHub repo, and here eShop microservices. All you need to do is just bring this eShop main. So what is the importance of this eShop main is that this will have the deployment scripts and the Postman scripts, and this will deploy the infrastructure which is needed for this entire eShop solution, as well as this can deploy the entire solution. That means
I just want to jump in and just validate, that will be the publishing step, not like the build step, right? So
true. To release, that is the release step that we will discuss in step 5. Now this is like, well, it has got the documentation, and it will have the deploy, and that will deploy the entire solution, and it will have the workflows which deploys the infrastructure. We'll see about this in step 5, but I want to quickly speak about this one. So all you have to worry about, have one parent folder. Somewhere you can have it in C drive, and just clone the eShop main. Once you clone eShop main, what you can do is you can get into this scripts folder, and the scripts folder will have 3 important files. So if you see that, one is the YAML. So as and when we are adding the new repositories into the mix, so we'll just update this YAML file. So this either the shell scripts or PowerShell script, you can use anything. So that scripts will go, and it will take care of bringing in these things. For the first time, if it will do a git pull, git clone, and if it is for the second time, it does the git pull. And I forgot the name of those 2 authors from where I learned this technique. I'll remember. I'll get their names in the next episode, but I forgot their names. Back to you, Robbie.
Oh no, that was all right. Very good. I'm gonna share my screen here. Oh yeah, I actually have to share my screen. Give me just a second. Let me do that.
Yeah, go and pop it through. I'll put it through into the stream now, Robbie.
Okay. I'm seeing like the there it is. The screen button is what I need to do.
That's it. Yeah.
Select entire screen. Okay, hopefully you guys are seeing my screen.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. Let me add him in, and we'll get there now. So Get rid of Swamis and put yours in. There we go. We should be able to see you now. There we go. Got you. All yours.
So I'm just going to go into, thank you. I'm just going to go into eShop. And I have a parent folder, eShop microservices, where I keep my eShop main. And that's the one I want to open so that I can look at that same script. I'm having trouble with my automatic previews here, so apologies for that. Great. So I was just going to point out that we've already presented this. What we used to have is a raw array of repositories that it would grab and then build in that process. And we decided that it would be a great idea to build a pattern about how to add new projects into our eShop main so that we can publish together all of those pieces. So we separated it out. This is not really making use of the script that I'm using. Is not really making the full use of YAML here. It's not like it's using a YAML parser. All I have is just a little grep and awk shell script to get the repositories out of it and give me the array that we used to have before. And as a consequence of that, I can now run the GitHub, the clone. Let me see. I have to go into the scripts folder. It's going to tell me as soon as I do this, by the way, that I have to run it from a different location, but that's okay because that's just how we've got it. Yes, I want to do it from the folder containing eShop main. We've got it so that it's kind of foolproof. I need to do /. And it's just going to run and get each piece individually, just like it would before. I think that's actually as quick as it was. That pretty much covers it. I can start by highlighting that a similar thing was done for the git clone for the PowerShell script, but I don't even have latest main pulled down. I just have my copy before Swami fixed this. So maybe Swami, you can take it from here for the PowerShell version.
Yeah, sure. I was having water. Okay, thanks. So you do want me to show the shell scripts and PowerShell, or only PowerShell?
I apologize. I probably did that quicker than you were expecting. But yeah, I already did the bash shell. I demonstrated the changes in the bash shell, and I have faithfully put myself in a position where I'm not going to be presenting the PowerShell version. I don't actually have PowerShell set up on my Mac. Anyway.
Okay, cool then. So let me show that only the PowerShell one. John, could you please flash my screen?
You're on. You can leave yours there, Robbie, in the window, and we can come back to it if needs be.
Great.
Yeah,
yep.
You're on there.
So, yep. So here, if we see the documentation, let's go to the documentation over here. We have all the pictures. How do we execute? So the important thing is handling this YAML file. There's an module, PowerShell-YAML. I just installed it. And after that, convert from YAML and give the content of this raw. And that itself will create an array. It was so easy. Okay. So the thing is that we need to be in this particular folder, eShop main scripts. So let me go there. And let me traverse, and then we'll see that it will be in eShop main and scripts under the microservice eShop main. And here we go. And the thing is that let's go to that main folder. here. So inside this eShop microservice. So let's see some of the things, like if you see that oscillate and eShop services configuration. Let's see these two folders. Do we have a folder for oscillate? I have the folder for oscillate. I am deleting that, and eShop services configuration. So I deleted that folder also. Okay, so right now you can see that there are 10 items in this. We don't see one folder which starts, which is for the oscillate API gateway. That's the future. And the configuration service, which you see here in this one. We have oscillate and services configuration. So I will expand this so that we can see the execution. And see, this PowerShell script is pretty simple. We'll come back and we'll discuss about that. But at this point of time, let me go and execute this one so that we will be able to see what it is doing. Okay, so git clone and just enter. So I think I am sure I executed this. So go back. Just give me 1 minute because looks like that module is missing. I'm sure I installed it. It'll not take much time. It's pretty fast.
But this is fundamentally.
You actually had that listed as a step. I think you might have uninstalled it for the purposes of demonstrating.
Okay. So we are. Okay, I'm back here. So cd eShop main and cd scripts. There's a git clone. You can see that the branches where it already exists, it says up to date, and the branches which it has to pull something, it will pull, and see the branch which doesn't exist, it is cloning. And wherever it doesn't have, it either does the cloning or it does refresh. I mean, either it is doing the. You can see that wherever it already exists, but the delta it is bringing in. So I just quickly searched the authors from whom I learned. These are the two authors from whom I saw their video course. I really liked that concept. So we borrowed that and we implemented in 2 versions. I think they used PowerShell script to do it.
Swami,
and
do you think sometime after the show we can add in a link just in the video chat or in the what do you call it, the YouTube comment, indicating where that source, just because it is good to give credit where credit's due, and I know that's your intent.
Oh yeah, yes, definitely, because we learned it from these 2 authors. So definitely they have to be credited. Thanks for they are very knowledgeable, serious knowledgeable. They are the wealth of knowledge. Back to you. Oh, there's one more step I think we need to discuss, and then these 2 things we have discussed. Now coming back to these things, as we are working on microservices. So let's do a quick comparison. If you come and see the GitHub actions here, the responsibility, how we distributed, John, Robbie, and we discussed that eShop main will take the responsibility to ensure that it is deploying the infrastructure required for the entire solution. And each individual microservice will have its own set of GitHub actions, which will ensure that that particular piece or that particular microservice should be able to get deployed anytime we need it. Like I did some fix, I should be able to go and deploy it independently. Assuming that main will run first, it will deploy the infrastructure, and each individual microservice, maybe products or the catalog or configuration or users or identity, each of these independent microservice will be deployed independently through their GitHub actions. Now, the good thing, what we liked about this is, you see that deploy Docker image to AKS. This is one of the workflow. We'll show you here in this workflow. The workflow here, if you can see that, A4, that's a separate workflow. This will go and get the image from the Docker. It logs into the Azure. It brings in the Docker image and deploys it to the Kubernetes. So this is there inside the eShop products microservice. Now coming back to the main, if you go and see main, let's get into the workflow. If we come into the workflow and see this workflow, the main, what it does, the first thing is it scans for Terraform and it does a gated build, it does a CI build, and it deploys the infrastructure. And apart from that, what it does is it goes and it deploys the products microservice also. So let's see that here. If we come in to that eShop main, let's go to this eShop main, and here in the GitHub actions, in the workflow, you see that main deploy eShop solution. Okay, in this eShop solution, it does all these things and it deploy eShop infrastructure. And after deploying the eShop infrastructure, the next step, if you see that, we are reusing the workflow which has been created in products microservice. That's the wonderful thing which we love, seeing that we can reuse the workflow which has been defined in some other repository, because technically the deploying products microservice does not belong to eShop main. Clearly it says that Vishipilor eShop services products. So this workflow is from the products microservice, but we are able to reuse that. That's the fun part. Really, we loved and we enjoyed doing this one. And the thing is that we need to ensure that whatever it needs, we have to provide it. One thing we are still exploring is that the eShop products API K8s, this is the workflow file which it expects. So that has been copied at 2 different places, but we are still exploring. But at least the benefit of reusing the workflow, that's one point. And another point is this eShop main, when you want to deploy the entire solution, you can use this. And apart from that, anytime you want to go ahead and deploy any of the individual microservice, maybe it's a products microservice or you did a patch fix of this Angular app, you want to deploy these things independently, definitely. They have their own infrastructure, in the sense the GitHub actions, which will enable this to go and deploy itself independently. Back to you, Robbie and Johnny. Anything to add from your side?
No, I think that was a great conclusion to that first saga, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to some of the things that you hinted towards at the end that we're going forward into. In the next saga, we're going to be talking about the eShop client application, and actually I can show that off if you're ready to switch back to my screen. So we've gone a little bit further than a little bit further is kind of an understatement than what we're going to demonstrate today. But we have an eShop client ng web repository where you can see the notes for this session, for example. And it renders this client currently. And this is actually getting data from our Kubernetes AKS. And we even have, like a banner and a login process, which actually that might not be set up because the only thing that I copied into here is the API host. But the intent is to render something that allows people to log in using an identity service that we haven't even touched on yet. This banner and stylistic elements of this page are coming from a separate design system that we're bringing in as an import, like an NPM import into our project. And we're using that to render currently, it was just very slow. We're using that to render, I got interrupted there, but the products is what we're rendering currently. We just got a wall of products. And you can see it changes from a cat, an anonymous cat, to an individual. If I just reload this page, it'll be a different individual. This is just from some random API. In fact, these aren't actually real people, by the way, so don't worry about that. This is the whole thing that I use with the dummy data for products and for the profiles is that they were AI generated images. So this is respectful of everyone's privacy. And it does render in details here, like I think this is the price and this is the description. And then these are just, AI generated images of artwork, but none of that is actually what we're going to be doing. We're not going to be creating this card layout. We're not going to be, in the future, I'm hoping that this will be in an infinity scroll. Well, obviously we'll have a cart and we'll be going forward from here. But today we're just going to talk about Angular and setting up this project so that we can render products. So a quick question that you might have is, okay, so why are we using, what's the point with Angular? What's the deal? Because clearly there are other options, and those other options are great. They might be better for you, or they might not. One of the nice things that's great about Angular is that it provides a lot of scaffolding out of the box that is applicable to teams. It helps people conform to patterns of test-driven development, or at least going back and testing, unit testing and demonstrating, so that the next person who makes a change can see that they accidentally broke something. And similarly, it coordinates information about the web page in a fashion that is very familiar and accessible to a new developer. Like there's an HTML file for the template. There's an SCSS or a CSS file for your style sheet, and there are components in TypeScript. Another great advantage of Angular is that it's pretty fast. It's not like super fast, but it's pretty darn fast. And you get a lot of handling of the shadow DOM, for you out of the box, just automatically in using Angular. So in order to do that, you're going to want to run it. Like right now, this is being run in client mode, really. I'm using npm start just to get this to run. But normally you would produce an artifact it sounds funny to compile if you're coming from a JavaScript world and not used to even Webpack, but there's a compile step where it just basically gathers all of the TypeScript, converts it to JavaScript, and puts it into chunks, and then publishes those, exposes those to the front end. So in order to do that, the first thing we need to do is to create a client. And let me just also give you some details about our versions here. So my current version of Node is the LTS version of Node at this moment. And that's actually kind of a little bit of a problem with Angular. I've already got Angular 14.2 installed, which is the version that we're going to be using because, the versions update relatively quickly and we don't want to update every single time. Because we have things distributed across multiple repos, and let's just, stick to one for a while and have a cadence to our change. So if I print this out, you'll notice that I get this warning that this node version is not supported by Angular. What they do is whenever this comes out, the 14 level comes out, they select the node version they make sure that everything is set to the LTS for that node version at that time, which at that time was not this high. So that's the reason why that warning is there, but it's really very unlikely. I can't say that there won't be an issue in the future, but I just can't imagine that there would be an issue in the future that they didn't go back and update on, one of the most current branches of Angular. ng is the command that you use, and you might be wondering, where do I get ng? That's from npm i-g at Angular CLI. And then if you wanted to get it at a specific version number, you could do that. I'm not going to run this because you can see it's already installed here. So let's just use it. So ng is a command line tool. Let's see if it'll tell me a little bit about that. And yeah, it's got many different patterns and ways to be used. One of the things that's nice about Angular is that it is kind of well structured around a sort of mono repo approach. You can have multiple packages installed. You can have your packages for components that are meant to be exported and shared in other projects in different package libraries in the same project, that you also have an application folder, an application branch that actually builds and runs the intended application. But today we're going to be just running a new new client. This is going to create a new, you can see here, new creates a new workspace and client, it being its name. And by default, this will be an application workspace. So there'll be an app that we can just immediately go and look at. Oh yeah, I got to select. At this point, we are going to select routing because a little bit later on, we're going to go into that. And I use SCSS typically. That's my go-to, simple enough. Your mileage may vary. And you can see that it's installing NPM packages at this point. It's created a bunch of basic structure that will open up. Actually, I think I'm already in a position I can now open that up. So let me kill this client and open this one. Yeah, so it's already got a TS config set up and a different one for testing, and one run, like this is the base TS config. This is the one for running the app. There's a configuration for the Angular project definition here, which will facilitate building the Angular project and other details. And the thing I'm actually supposed to be showing you, instead of all of that, now that we've completed the installation, is that it's got a package JSON. So this is just a regular NPM project that you get at the end of this. And you can go in and update details here as you feel the need to. And NPM start will start it for you, and you can do an NPM run build or an NPM run watch, that sort of thing. Or you can do NPM test, and you get the NPM test. You'll see that all of these go through the ng facility, which is a command line facility that gets installed by that at Angular/CLI. And so these are like special functions, and you can read about them. You can do ng help. I think it's help first. Serve. Oh, that's funny. So that actually happened because I have the wrong version of ng installed, and I might need to swap out for a second because I did run the npm, and that's actually what's caused that. I can fix it, but I just have to go back and fix that. For the moment, let's not worry about it. Let's just go on and see how far we can go. I will need to fix it for a minute, maybe off camera. But the next thing after showing that it's a package is to discuss configuration. When you run this with npm run start, npm start using ng, it's going to expose environment variables, and it protects you from exposing the build time environment variables that are available through Node, like process CMD sorts of variables. So if you want to put in a API host or something like that, so that you have a place to receive your, I'm going to get that really quickly. So you have a place to receive API data from, and to transact API data. You can put that in your environment. They have different environments for different runtimes. So this one here is the default dev environment for what I'm doing with the ng serve, and then this one here is the production environment. And so if you only put it in one, then you might forget to put it in another. And then TypeScript, depending on your TypeScript settings, may care about the shape of these objects and that they be the same. And so for those reasons, it's actually kind of deprecated to do this. So we're gonna do that this episode. We're just gonna make use of the environments, but a better idea is to use environments to only demonstrate the environment that you're in, and to then set up a configuration object that is based on which environment you're in, right? Like you'll have multiple configuration environments under a configuration, under config file, or under a config folder if it's worth it to be that complex. So let's actually just demonstrate all of those things that I just talked about. That there's this process CMD, or that you might expect anyway, that there would be a process CMD that was available during the build time, and yet we're not going to see that. And then these Angular settings are actually exposed, right? So let's actually also even add a not exposed true, because I imagine that not exposed is going to be true. Or I could do it the other way around, so that just because I like to have parity for my logic later in the project. Okay. So the app itself is going to run from the index.html, and the main index.html points to, or it will load up a main TS, and main TS will bootstrap the app module. The app module will have details about routing that are installed from this custom routing file that's provided, and other details like an app component. And then it has a bootstrap component, which tells you whenever it first comes on, if it's being loaded as a bootstrap, that it should go and get this component to render. And this component are these files here. The component is the test file for the component, which won't be in your production at all, and the style sheet and the template. So let's see which one I'm supposed to do first. Yeah. So here in this app component, I can add process env equals, and this is going to be interesting even to get to it because it won't really exist. So I need to reference it from global this dot process env. So now if there is a process env, my app component has that assigned to it as a variable on the class. And I can do the same thing with Angular env. But this time I'm just going to get the environment. By the way, whenever it's running in prod, it'll be that same variable. You see that the path is named here for environment. And the reason that the file name doesn't have to change in order to reference production is because in Angular, there are file replacements that we run during production. Like we'll swap in the environment.prod for environment.ts during the code gathering phase of compilation. So there's that detail. And now we need to render it. So I'm going to wipe out everything that would normally be rendered in an app component. And I'm just going to create a div and a couple of figures to render this. information. This is just following, I'm trying to help myself follow HTML5 semantic. And then here, we do the same thing. I'm going to not just leave you in the lurch about how this substitution works, but you're probably very familiar. Many people are probably very familiar with handlebars and that sort of a. Trying to think of what it's called now. There's one-way binding and two-way binding. So this would be one-way binding. But this part here you might not know, and it's just a handy built-in. There's a lot of handy features and opinions basically in Angular, which, your mileage may vary. You may not agree with those opinions, but you can obviously replace these. You can replace that pipe JSON with your own. And later on, we'll actually look at that. But for now, we're just going to use the built-in one. And just what it does is it takes this value and it passes it to a function called JSON pipe, or to a function on a JSON pipe object, which is going to render the JSON of this render this object as text. Right? And so now we should be able to view it if I can get it to run. And I'm kind of curious if I have to at this point address my mapping or not. Let's see. Oh, good. That's working. You can run. I just needed to load the terminal because the install screwed it up. Npm start. That's what I mean. So the first time you run it, you may be asked questions about sharing information to help improve development experience. At work, you would definitely probably be saying no, but in a personal environment, you might say, yeah. Now that it's up, I should be able to just go to it, and I can see my process EMB and my Angular EMB. So that I hope tightly illustrates that. So what I said we were going to do is we were going to just get a basic framework up here, a page up, so that we could render products. And it's not going to be all of those different things that we were looking at before. Where is it? Here. It's not going to be styled like that or anything, but yeah, we can at least present products. So let's do that. And what I'm going to suggest that we do, that you do, is that you go into the source folder in this case and into the app, because the app is the root where that module exists. And normally you would create lazy loaded modules so that you're not loading all the code in at once. It's just kind of a good coding practice if you're only going to need one at a time. Like if you can have several components for several different routes, and your route is reflected in your URL, so you're only going to render one of them at a time, then in that case, that would be a great use of using lazy loading to separate out and distribute the weight of your package. So I need to generate a products component and a products module. So let me actually go ahead and do that first. So there's actually, I can spell it out first, like generate, let's do module first, so it doesn't go into the apps module. Yeah, so now I have a products module and a folder to contain products. So now I can do also generate component products. and that works. You don't actually have to do generate. You can just do ngg, and instead of doing component, you can do C. Instead of module, you can do M. That stuff doesn't really matter. But I do want to add the product service, I believe. And with the service, it doesn't actually get loaded in with this lazy loaded module necessarily. So if you want to describe where it needs to install it, you need to add that to your path. So that's why this is going to say products twice. So I get a service, a module, and a component. My module is already set to contain a products component. If I go into the products.ts file now, I would like to get products. So I'm just going to imagine that somehow I'm going to have products. And I just want to point out that the benefit of the scaffolding in part is that it is really envisioned to work with MVVM and MVC. I should have said that earlier. So there are design patterns for separation of concerns to help ensure the maintainability of complicated UE features, complicated UE products. And not just that, but largely that. And a great solution is to have like for example MVC, and that stands for model and model view controller. And the view is like what you see. It's the render that goes out to the browser. And largely you can think of that as your style sheet and to a degree your HTML, like without binding and stuff, at least your HTML. And then the controller is the component here. And the controller's task is to get data, perhaps lightly transform it so that it is appropriate for render, and then render that data by passing it to the view. It's also to do the reverse, to take data from the user, possibly lightly massage it into something that it passes to the backend for, to the business logic for processing. And then all of the other stuff, all your render decisions about what you're going to render, all of the details about how you're going to process user input, and the transaction or transition of states that you observe on services is going to happen in models, and the product service is the first model. So in the constructor here, I need to give myself the product service. And if I do public like this, and then products service, and then I have to make this an import. Great. So now I've got a product service. By putting public in the constructor, that's kind of a shorthand way of doing something like this. Like if I do product service, and then here I do get rid of that, and I do this product service equals product service. That's what you might normally do if you wanted, but in TypeScript you can do it this way. And then in ng on init, I'm going to want to make sure that I have products available, right, to render. So we're going to get products. So now one of the things we need to think about is what happens to products. So we're going to want to show those in the HTML component here. So the URL, and then an li, right, because we want to show them. And there are a couple of, I can't remember the name of this. It's like an executable. Shoot, there's a technical term for this. There's a couple of them like this, ng-for and ng-if. This allows you to execute a bit of logic, basically, relative to the information that you're going to put in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to with products from the product source, and we're going to use the observable of products on the products service to fuel a set of products that we're going to render in li. And to do that, we need to work on one each, right? So this ng-for will produce a bunch of LIs. So we're going to do the product service. And the thing is, this isn't observable, so it's kind of like a promise, and you're not going to be able to iterate over it instantaneously. So you're going to have to watch for changes on that observable and then render them. To do that, you can use something called async pipe, which is another handy. It's got a couple of caveats that make it a little bit dicey, maybe, but it's largely very, I'm hoping, largely very applicable, and it simplifies the code. Like, you'll be amazed at how small our component is this one. So now obviously we want to render a product, and for now we'll just do it in JSON because that's been handy before. Right, so now that we've done those two pieces, we have this problem over here. We don't have get products defined, so let's go to the definition. We don't have one, so can I do that and declare that method? And let's go fix our problem. So in order to transact, you could use like fetch, right? But there's actually something that's designed to maintain like reusable headers and things of that nature. For Angular, there are other benefits as well called HTTP client. So we're going to bring in HTTP client. And I need to make that an import. Let me. It doesn't know what it is. Just a second. Good. So now I have this HTTP client, and in my get products, I can go and get my products now. I can do this HTTP client dot get, and I can give it a environment in this case, because remember we had this is a handy reuse of illustrations here. We had set up an API host, so I can get it from that URL. And then whenever you do a get like this, it just creates a promise essentially that we want to then fire off. It uses RxJS, and it's actually setting up a subscribable. I can't remember that term, the terminology exactly. If it's a subscribable observable, or if it's it always has to actually be a subject. But the point of what I'm trying to say here is that a subscription doesn't hang up after you write from it. So you might want to get it once and be done. There's more than just getting it once that you might want to do. You could use first value from instead of doing it this way through first. Like for example, you might want to catch errors and then handle errors elegantly, and you could do that, with catch error, and in the case of the error, do something with error. But we're not going to go into all that. I'm just going to leave it on first. And we do need to subscribe, or else it'll never fire. It'll be ready to go, and it'll just sit there. And then I'm going to put in next. I'm going to use this pattern. This is get products. This should be this products. Results. And I know this is kind of cheating, but we're just doing the start here. So, I mean, because this is actually the whole transaction body, right? But these products are going to be a new behavior subject, which is a type of RxJS object that you have to tell it the type, and you have to give it a value. So it's going to be a type product, which is an array. And then you need to give it, actually, it might not be set yet because I want to let it start, not set. Now, product is an interface that we haven't set up yet. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about how TypeScript works, but we will go and set that up next. we need the observable version of this. And the reason that I suggest that you do that, because now that I've got this thing going, I can actually already, let me just do one so I can do this, and already do this products as observable, and I get an observable. And so I could just allow, consumers, like my product component, to work directly off of this observable. But the problem is they can also push onto it. They can control the object, right? And I may or may not feel comfortable with that. So as a general pattern, I'd like to separate the two. And this is not, this is like a very common thing. So I'm just going to do that directly here. And now this can be exposed to the client. Now the problem is that it doesn't know what results are, so we need to tell it that results are a array of products. Product, actually. And that is kind of largely correct. I need to bring in product, so let's create product. So here we can define the interface for a product. I don't remember what they are, the properties are. So we're just going to do that for now, and that'll be fine. So yeah, so now we've got our import set up. We've got the constructor that is necessary in order, just the way I've done it, in order to map HTTP client. And we're just very simply using get products immediately. We're not doing any logic to see if it's already run or any of that. We're just immediately going to fire it off and push that down the pipe on products. So now the send you a minute, which may not be the ultimate place to, and then products are going to render one at a time in LIs that contain one product each from the service. That makes some assumptions though. Like one of them was that we had this HTTP client, and we actually didn't provide it yet. We have to do that. So in the products module, we can go to the imports and add a HTTP client module. Although I just added it to products module, and the reality is that it's one too. So let me move it over to the app module. And so now we've got this product, and hopefully it will render. I'm hoping to share that shortly. But I want to attach it as a route so that you can get to it. Right? So we're going to go into the app routing module and set up some routes. So these are routes that actually affect, and we want to set up our single page application to respect these routes as virtual indices on our render. So we're going to set up one for products, pattern with lazy loading, so that we get code separation and we don't do all of our import at once. And now we need to tell it what thing we wanted, which is products module. And then with that products module, we are responsible to get the module funnel like that. And that won't exactly work though, because we haven't configured our products module to handle that. But let's actually go the rest of the way. Let's add a link to it so we can get to it. So in order to render the link link we're going to need to add router outlet. And now I get a link to actually get to it. And so the final thing is that we need to set up our module so that it can conform to that pattern. There are different ways of doing the routing, so you don't have to do this. So you could just put the module, the component directly in, which we're actually about to explore. But this is kind of a nice pattern whenever you're first bringing in a whole user flow from a URL. So to set up the products module, we need to now add a products routing module, which looks like this app routing module, but in here in products. And this needs to not actually be an app routing module again, but a products routing module. And in here, we're already in products, so we don't need that in our path. And we can just directly also grab a component, which is going to be our products component. And just in case we want to use this in the future for other things, let's go ahead and put in a path match criteria so that we're ending at products, right? So it's not anything after products in our URL. And also this little piece needs to change. It's not for root, that's only for the outermost module. It's for child. So these child routes will apply. And the cool thing is you can actually put in another, like in your products component .html, you could put in another router outlet here, and you could have additional routing within that render at this router outlet while you're on the router outlet from the app component that rendered the URL selection. So it's a very natural way to extend routes in an application. So I need to actually bring that router module in here, products routing module. And then hopefully, as a result of all of that, that was a lot of code, right? So forgive me if this breaks, but we've actually walked through this and it does work. We had independently people, like Swami, walk through this and got good results. So yeah, same location. And if I hit this, oh, we did hit an error. What is our error? Not found. That's because I just put in the raw URL for the API host. I didn't put in the whole path. So I did this part wrong. Just a second. I have to get what that looks like because I don't remember the path.
I'd say, Robbie, for live coding, you're not doing bad.
Thank you. Honestly, I cannot find it right now in the notes that we had up. I know I was just looking at it a second ago, but that's okay because I can find it here because we have great documentation for that. So it looks like it's API v1 products. And I do get a different error here. Get products, ng1 init. Method is not info. Oh, did I not save that? That's just a not save.
AP/v1/products.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're largely up now. I just have a little bit of debug to do. But I just get a
What does it
error.
say now?
You haven't got a you want to put a slash before the API by the looks of it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Great. All right. So that was a really like a whirlwind approach to try and get in and get some products, and we have these. And it would be great to style and render those, right, to make them look actually more like products. And I'm thinking about time here because I know I'm already a little bit over, and we're expecting to be a little bit over, but I don't want to put us very much over. So what I'm going to do is just show, because you would not normally render all of the products. That's like the better solution is to compartmentalize responsibilities. So let me just go through the start of it and maybe not also do the styling, and then I'll stop short at that point. So what I want to do is in here with my LI, I want to replace this with something that can render each product. Like this selector, you'll find this kind of funny, but this selector here that I'm going to use comes from here, this selector. This is app products. So we're going to create a new one for app/product just for one product. And then you can give it a property like product, and you can tell it that it's going to be a value like the product that we received. Like this product here, which is also rendered down here, you can let it be that. But this won't map it correctly. Like that would just put the word product. To get it to substitute in, you put in square braces. There's like a pattern that's used to make that work. And so now I can do ng gc, I'm sorry, gm product, and I'll get a new folder for just my product. This one doesn't have to be a route or anything, right? This is just a component, so I can just load it directly, which is actually kind of what I'm doing there. Let me actually make that component while we're mentioning it. And then the other thing that I can think of is that this interface for whatever a product is really belongs over here. So let's just, do a little refactor that way. Make sure everything's saved. And I'm not actually going to go through these details on how to construct it because I'm also not going to style it. Just in light of time, but I do want it to work so that it will at least render it. So for the moment, I'm just going to leave that alone, and just go into the module. And I already have. I need to duplicate this to be an export. The reason that that's true is because we want to allow somebody else to make use of this component. And that's the word that's used in this configuration object. This decorator is just a function, and this function receives a configuration object that tells it details about what it should expose and what it needs to consume. So declarations would be the type of things that it's allowed to render itself, and then or include in rendering. And then exports are things that it's allowed to provide to other modules. So we want to consume that product module in our products module. Get that wrong. Okay, like that. And I think even with just that, because I believe that we saved it. Yeah, okay, but we do the spanner as well. Drop that span. It won't obviously render it this time, but we'll see. We'll see product works one for each one, and then obviously we could set in something to render it and make it look good at the end. Let's see. In product component HTML. Oh, the import. Okay. I tried to go quickly here, and on that last corner, I might have put myself in a bind. Oh, right, because it doesn't import, it needs to accept an input. All right, now it compiles successfully, and I get a product for each one. And the only thing that I'm skipping from the instructions that you can see in ng client web are the details that were necessary to style, more or less. So that would involve modifying the HTML here to compartmentalize what we're going to render from the product object, which we can access directly. Like I can just do think product.name is going to render directly. Is it not name? What is it called? Price, maybe? Right, because I remember we have a price. Oh, it's rendered, yeah. So name and price might be correct, but not if I don't have it on my interface. So price is going to be a number. I mean, it's actually not, it's a string. And then I have to change the component to tell it that it's a product. And I get the prices of all of my products. All right. The last thing I really want to talk about before handing this off, handing this back to you guys, is just what would happen next. Let's say that that's actually what we wanted. We wanted a list of prices for our products. The next step would be, right now we've been working in the, here in Angular.json. We have been working in the build for the dev environment. So this is, yeah, that's this one. In production, we would use the production environment, and there are flags that you can use to build for, build for production, but they're not even set up right now. And we can explore that in more detail. But for, let's say a general case as a startup, all you want to do is do ng build. And what's going to happen here is it's going to create a new folder, which you want to make sure you don't actually save in your Git repository when you're keeping the history of all this stuff. But it's going to create a dist folder where it will put all of these details. And anybody who's used Webpack is probably familiar with this pattern or rollup or anything. But I just want to show that this provides for you, oh, right. And there is no, this is exactly what I was talking about. The objects in your environment have to have the same shape. So I need to put this in here. I'll try that build again. And I just want to go through that and then just circle back one more time and talk about how we can consume this in an intelligent way instead of just copying this over into a zip file and installing it through FTP on our server or something. This is obviously the compiled chunks that we were talking about. And we have a separate chunk from main because of our lazy loading. And then there's the styles get compiled. So all of these styles that were available. There were parts of these components that we didn't look at, like SCSS and spec files. These get brought in as styles for only that component. They're scoped to the component with custom properties that are added to each component as it gets rendered. And so these can become heavy in terms of your export. You want to be very lean in anything you put in your styles here. You don't want to bring in a lot of imports every time you reuse imports. And you can still expose global ones either by by configuring the component so that its styles are global. You can indicate that those styles should be global, or you can also import them directly from global style sheet. Or add them directly to your global style sheet. The other part though is the spec files, and the spec files kind of ties it in with the dist folder, because whenever you're building this, you're going to be doing that in Terraform. You're going to be doing that in a build process, and among the steps that you're going to do, you're also going to want to do like regression, like making use of your unit tests with something like Jest, so that you can quickly validate that details of the page that you were intending to render are actually rendering the way you intend, right? And you can actually set those up, which we're not going to go into at all, because that's a future episode, but you can set them up in here. This is actually not Jest by default. It comes out of the box with Jest. And yeah, that's the intro to that saga.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, that was the first look that I really got of Angular and TypeScript, to be honest, Robbie. So it was kind of really nice to try and follow along with the way it's going. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's a great place to be now. We've kind of introduced the client side part to this this microservices e-commerce solution, and yeah, we've got a lot of episodes to go. But I mean, Swami, is there anything you want to add before we kind of bring this episode to a close this week?
The only thing is, like, we took this as a first step towards introducing the client application, integrating with the products API, which sits inside the Kubernetes microservice, and we took only those points which were needed to create a base application without much of a styling. But the next episode is a pretty much a deep dive into a lot of points, like how do you configure. Apart from that, we got a couple of points. I don't know how to pronounce MUGATU. One of the user, he gave few points. I captured everything in the notepad, which we can discuss offline and see what points we can incorporate in the future session, like JIT compilation or IV or those things. I mean, I'm not defending, but the only thing is we used those concepts which are needed to integrate it. But surely we three will discuss and see, at least to touch upon or introduce those topics before we do a deep dive configuring Angular application. Thanks for your suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that, Robbie. That was a great intro to the client. So yeah, looking forward to next time. So not sure on the date. Have we got the date to hand for the next one? Is it 2 weeks, or are we?
I believe it's the 18th. Yeah.
It's the 18th.
Yep, it's 18th.
So 2 weeks, guys. It's been a pleasure. Nice to see you all again. We'll bring this episode to a close, and yeah, I guess we'll see each other in a couple of weeks' time.
Awesome.
Good night.
Bye for now.
It's 11:50 p.m.
Good night, Swami.
I wish even India could have this kind of daylight saving scheme apart from the rest of the world. Because what's happening?
Yeah, that actually brings something up. We've all decided, we all voted the same, right? That we're going to switch over now to UTC going forward, so that we don't have to keep shifting it around. And
we'll update it now. I'll check UTC and we'll update it to make sure we know what time it is. But anyway, let's bring this to a close. We can chat on the Skype now, can't we?
Yeah. Bye.
Bye all.